the shiur that we're going to talk about, we'll speak about the groom and bride. So we'll speak about the kala, the bride. So in this case, um, one of the translations of kala is to be completely consumed. So you can put it to this effect that we will not go back until you completely achieve, you consumed your goal. Um, so that's one side. Now, Rabbi Ginzburg continues to say that the other person, we know that there are three people that are connected to the festival of Shavuot. One is King David. He was born on Shavuot. He passed away on Shavuot, so it's very much connected to him. Two is our famous Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, that he was the one that Shavuot is the festival where we celebrate God giving us the Torah. The person that was the giver was Moshe Rabbeinu. So obviously, it's his holiday, it's his festival. And the third person, and this is much more connected to our generation. It was a couple hundred years ago, and up until today, we're connected to the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidut, that he also passed away on Shavuot. Now, one of the things that he did, and we're continuing in the letter, is Baal Shem Tov put the love between the love and the connection and the achdus, the togetherness of the nation of Israel, of all Jews, ki yesod hayesodot, the foundation of everything, meaning everything is founded based on the love between and the achdus and the togetherness of Jews. This is the right time. Rabbi Ginzburg continues to say that now is the right time to grow and to increase the achdus, the arvut adadit, the togetherness, the responsibility, the collective of Jews in everywhere in Eretz Israel and in our holy land. Lomar, meaning we want to say techazakna yadem kol habayim le'ezrat Hashem, that everyone that's coming together to help, and we're mainly speaking about inland, that there are a lot of Jews that came from everywhere to help different cities that were attacked by Arabs within, especially the city of Lod that was very much attacked. So all the Jews that came to help, and they came based on the strong foundation of Jews' love for each other and connection to each other, that this love and connection was revealed and introduced as a core effect of Jews by the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov also said that the heart of Israel, Lev Yisrael Chai, and the same that we believe, that we believe in God, we have faith, we have emunah, the same thing we should have a belief in Jews. So the same thing as we try to do, and this is something that Rabbi Ginzburg speaks about very much, just like we try to do tshuva, we try to repent, we try to get closer to God for the individual deeds that we're doing. That the same thing as a collective, as Jews in our public domain, we should make tshuva, repentance for the things that we've done that are not so right. Meaning, one of the things that we've been taught by public figures is that we can be together with the Arabs, we can work together. Now this is the time to say that these are not true things, not the way we're doing it, where we're kind of bringing everyone together and saying it will be okay. This is not going to be not good for heaven, not good for earth. It's not going to be good for us and not going to be good for them. The this is not going to create the foundation of Torah is founded on three, and those three are God and the Jewish people and Torah, and that's our foundation. Um, Maybe I'll elaborate a little bit about this. Rabbi Ginzburg ends with a bracha for everyone for general public and every person to accept Torah and to be close to Torah with simcha, with happiness, and with a deep pnimius, with a deep understanding. But I'll just elaborate a little bit more on this. That basically, in order for us to do good, we have to be joined together. One of the examples if I'm not mistaken, I heard from Rabbi Ginzburg is that in order to help, if you're a family, in order to help others, you first have to have a good home where the family is being taken care of. If you're inviting guests, which in our case are the Arabs in Israel, if you're inviting guests, which we're all for inviting guests, but if you're inviting guests and treating them before you treat your family, you will have everyone mistreated, both the family and the guests, and it will create a mess in the house. The first has to be a very deep joint connections that we as Jews connect together, and we as Jews connect to the land of Israel. And after that, we can discuss having any guests and treating them well. As Jews, we always treat other people well. But in order to do that, we first have to be joined together and not say that everyone is the same and completely lose our sense of home, both in physical and political. So we'll just summarize a little bit this letter that Rabbi Ginzburg was pointing to two parts. The first part is the part that's connected to King David, where King David said that you should do what you need to do and do it until the end. The Lubavitch Rebbe was very, very much for that. That if you stop in the middle, you're ruining the whole effect. It's all in vain. Like, you have to do what you have to do, but you have to do it until you're done, until you completely take out the terrorists, their infrastructure, and their government, which currently is Hamas in Gaza. You have to do it until the end, and if you stop in the middle, you're ruining the opportunity that you were given and the sign from heaven to do this. And that's mostly for the part where we have to go out and fight. And the inner part where within our cities we have people that are attacking us, the Arabs that have lived with us for a long time, and we have treated them, unfortunately, in a better way than we treat our own, where they're coming against us, is a good time to remember our foundation of being Jews, of being close together, and only from that foundation can we help out others and be a beacon of light to the whole world. So that's the beautiful letter that Rabbi Ginzburg gave us before Shavuot, which is in the head of the current wonders of the week. After that, we're going to go into the Song of Songs, the first class, which is brought this week. Very, very deep class. It was given as a gift for the wedding. I think it's Rabbi Ginzburg's grandson. No, granddaughter. She was getting married this week, so they have a wedding gift that they gave explanation of the Alter Rebbe and Rabbi Miparich for the first two verses of the Song of Songs. So we'll go into this a little bit. We're just giving the content. The content is that Rabbi Ginzburg spoke that we're going into the 120th chapter of Tehillim. It's we're going into the 120th year from the birth of our beloved Lubavitch Rebbe, that he was born 119 years ago. So as we go into this year, it's a good time to talk about Shlom Bayit in the next 15 years. where we read the chapters from 120 to 135 in Tehillim, the connection between the 15 chapters have a connection of Shlom Bayit, of the right relationship building. And that relationship building is built on the secret of the Song of Songs. And we know with the love songs within Tanakh, very, very special, as we say that Kol HaShirim Kodesh, that all the songs in our Tanakh are Kodesh, but Shir HaShirim, the Song of Song, is Kodesh Kodashim, is the holiest of holy, the highest level. The same thing Rabbi Ginzburg explained is that Song of Song is the holiest level. The same thing, the explanations that Chassidut has, and Chassidut in general is the inner explanation of Torah. That inner explanation of Torah, the highest explanations, are the ones that were written for the Song of Songs. So the first time that the Alter Rebbe speaks in his book Likutei Torah, that was published by his grandson, that Tzemach Tzedek, was a mimer that was spoken on the wedding of the Alter Rebbe's granddaughter, together with Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Micharkas, who was a very holy person. There's lots of stories that Rabbi Ginzburg told about the wedding and in general. But in this statement, we're going to speak about the first two psukim, the first two verses in the Song of Songs. Very interesting that the first verse is just basically almost like a title, Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, Asher Lishlomo. That literal translation is that was sung by King Solomon. So that's the first pasuk. It's like a heading that speaks about the whole Song of Song. And then the second pasuk is Yishakeni min shikot piyu. That as we explained, the Shir HaShirim, there's two looks. One is between God and Am Yisrael, between God and in general, between two levels of God. The one that's connected to us, which is called more Shekhinah, and the higher level. Also, this is always explaining the basic. Let me give you a word for it. The basic parable of Shir HaShirim is between a husband and wife, a bride and groom, in this world. So we're jumping back and forth between the parable, between this world, between the relationship that we have in this world, and how it reflects the relationship between God and us. So that's in general what we're gonna speak about. I will just say that in the wonders of this week, we only took a certain section of it and put it in. There's a bigger section that was again given as a gift in the past week for Rabbi Ginzburg's granddaughter's marriage that has a lot more in it. So the first thing the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, is explaining is that the parable between bride and groom, between God and us, is not just a general parable where we're looking at God and everyone together, the whole nation of Israel, but rather a person can look at the relationship between him and God in the same manner that's looked upon over here. He can look at himself as the groom of God, the bride, and when, by the way, when we say this makes it a lot more personal. It's not a general thing to talk about the view of God of all of us as a collective, but also it also is a view of God of me. That when God is looking at me, what is He looking for? And what the Alter Rebbe explained is that there's two parts to a bride and groom, meaning two parts of a bride mainly. Looking at us, when we look at God as a male in this example, in this parable, we're looking at us as a groom, and there's two explanation of it. Again, in general, the word kala, in general, the bride is usually in Hebrew can also be the word to lechalot, which is to consume. So when we're looking at us in a marriage, when we're looking at a bride, she's completely consumed by this marriage. What does it mean? So there's two levels which Rabbi Hillel from Parshah, who has the explanation, explains them as an outer look and an inner look. But in general, there's two levels. One is Kalaila, the higher level, which is basically to be completely consumed with God, and until there's nothing left except for God. And the other is to have love and desire for God, but from our personal. To explain this, let's talk about when we say Shema Yisrael, the famous pasuk where we completely connect to God. We're saying that God is one, echad. What that means is that there's no us, there's no me, there's nothing in this world. There's just God. Just looking at it to say that God is before the world and after the world. So there's no sense of personality of me involved in here. There's just God. That's the highest level. But right after we say that, we say you should love God. Loving God is literally the opposite, where I'm looking at myself and saying, I am here, but I'm completely consumed with the love of God. But I'm still here. So those are the two levels of a bride in this relationship. One is completely being consumed by God, and the other is the opposite, being completely here, being a person right here in this world, but being consumed by the feeling, by the emotion, by the love for God. So those are the two levels, and we'll jump between them in order to give different sides of the relationship. The beauty of relationship, and this is something that I'm saying before we continue, the beauty of relationship in Judaism is that it allows you to be dynamic, to look at it from different angles, to play around, to be the husband and the wife at the same time, to be the one who gives in the relationship and the one who gets. And when you're looking at it this way, you're able to feel love in various different forms. It's on the one hand, it's like different angles of the same story. That when you're able to do this, when you're able to get out of yourself and just be in all angles, you're really able to be consumed and to be connected to God in all levels. So for this connection is called the Song of Songs. Shir, the basic explanation of song is a simple ta'anug, is a simple pleasure that a person feels. Is the simple connection. But shirim is different songs. This is already part of the bride. That you have one groom, let's call it, that's singing one song, and the bride is answering him with different songs, and that creates a Sherli Shlomo. Shlomo is a complete and whole view. That again, when we're viewing the relationship between us and God, and between, in general, the relationship between a man and woman, and between us as Jews, and any relationship, when you're viewing it, when you're able to look at different angles, when you're able to be in all areas, you're really able to look at it as a whole. Asher li Shlomo. King Solomon presented the highest level of holiness, of completion in this world, where everything was in his time. There was peace, there was ability to look at everything as a whole. And we're trying to not just go back to that time, but have a much elevated level of that time. But when we're trying to look at the most inner depth of love, that's where we want to be, where everything is whole. When we're looking at it as one whole, we know that man and woman many times are referred to two parts of the same soul that have lost each other, and now when they're connected as a whole. The same thing is how we are looking at it over here. So again, that's the first verse of the Song of Songs. But the second verse is that Yeshakeni min shikot piyu, that again, in this example, God will give us his kiss from his mouth. Kitovim dodecha miyain. Now, this is basically illustrating wine is more of the lower level of connection between a man and woman, and the higher level, meaning there's something higher about a kiss, and this is something Rabbi Ginzburg speaks about many times in Kabbalah, is yichud nishikin, that being together, giving a kiss is a very interesting thing that's happening where two people are expressing the love for each other. In the parable here as two people, but in general, when the Alter Rebbe explains, we're talking about a very high level of the love of God. But two people expressing the love for each other are kissing. There's something much higher in that expression, in that love, in that wholeness from wine, which is being together in a simple sense. So again, what is the special part of kissing is that we have both of these angles. That the higher angle is looking at it from, meaning that I'm completely connected to God. That we said that we're consumed with the love of God. That there's nothing. There's no. It's not two people. It's one person. It's one God. That God is one, and we're part of that one. And that's it. And the other part is the opposite, that God created me, the bride in this case, in this world. There's two people, and we're loving each other. We're connecting to each other. And that connection has something very holy to it. And that kiss that we have two people, it's not just one, it's two, that allows us to be united. So that's the first part. Rabbi Ginzburg continues to, again, we're jumping a little bit, but the connection, we know that we Jews started, but all over the world, that there's an item that connects people, that usually when you're standing at the wedding, the husband takes out, and again, this is all over, very unanimous in this world, that the feeling that even though there's two people loving each other, they have something that helps them connect. Usually they take a ring. That ring in our parable is Torah, that God gave us, that God gave himself, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that the first thing of Torah that was brought down to this world is that God put himself into it. But that Torah is connecting, again, Torah, as Rabbi Ginzburg points out in this beautiful jewel wonder in this, Torah is the same letters as Vatahar, which means to give birth, to consume, in the simple sense that a woman is able to, by being in a marriage, is able to give birth, to have life. So that connection that is given by Torah, and we know that when Torah was given, we were completely, the highest level of fainting, we died every time that God said something, and God brought us back to life with his tal, that the same way that he would have at the end of days Tchiyat HaMeitim, the resurrection of all the dead. God resurrected us every time. So we were consumed by Him. We wanted to go back to being one. And God said, no, we want to have two people and to have connection. So what is the connection? What is the three things that are connecting? There's God, there's the Israel, the nation of Israel, and every single, as we said at the beginning, every single one of us is part of that connection on its own. And the connecting piece, the third piece that helps us connect is Torah. Is when God gives us Torah that helps us connect. Um, then the Alter Rebbe goes to explain a little bit the side of the groom, of the Chatan, that in general, that when there is a marriage, the Chatan, the word groom is that it goes out of his level, that he's at the highest level, and it's very easy to explain when we look at God. God is at a very high level, and He goes down to this world with giving of Torah in order to connect to this world, and this also allows us, when we're looking at marriage, to see the jobs of each person. And we said this is very intertwined, that we can look at it from different angles, but the basic job of the groom in the house is to bring Torah, is to bring the higher level into the house, and the bride in the house, the basic job of the bride is to bring the Mesirut Nefesh, the complete devotion to Torah into the house. So the husband comes in and brings very high ideas of how to help the world, let's call it, how to help the house, how to do the things right. Some great ideas, but what the wife part of the relationship is to be consumed by it to the level that it's completely devoted to it, to these ideas, that it makes them flourish in reality. So in order to be in reality, and in order to be effective in this world, we have to have the side of the bride, of the wife in the relationship, where that side is basically completely giving himself or herself, depending on the angle that we're looking in, to the great ideas of Torah that the husband, that God is bringing. As you can see, there's a lot of jumping between the parable, which looks at it as a husband and wife, as a man and woman, as a marriage of two people, and looking at it as God and Klal Yisrael as me, and God. So you can see that there's a lot of jumping, a lot of switching positions in general. Or it's called in Chassidut, it's called the Chlifut Duchtayut. They changed their sides, and this allows us to make things flourish in the world and to connect to God at a very high level. This is the secret of the Song of Songs, of being able to connect to God in the highest level. So this whole idea of the bride, of the groom coming down to this world, is talking about how God is coming to this world, and we know that there's a again, it could be a parable, but it could also be like a description of what God does with His day. What, when someone could ask a question, what does God do all day? So the Gemara said that there's 12 hours in the day. 12 sha'ot, we're going to read upon in the Gemara and then explain. 12 sha'ot havayom. There's 12 hours in the day. The first 3 hours, God is sitting and learning Torah. Simply, He's in koilel. The second part of the day, the second 3 hours of the day, God is sitting and judging the whole world. But there's a problem with judgment. It sees that with judgment, the world is going to be demolished. So He stands from his judgment seat and goes into his merciful seat and looks at the world with mercy. So again, that's already 6 hours out of the 12 hours of the day, 2 parts. The third part, Shlishit Yoshev Vezan et Kol Ha'olam Kulo, that God sits and literally feeds the whole world. Mikarnei Re'emim, which is the very, very biggest animal, Ad Beitzei Kinim, the smallest eggs of the smallest animal, of lice, lice's eggs. So from the highest level to the lowest level, God gives everyone food. So that's the third part of the day. Revi'it Yoshevu Mesachek im Leviathan. The fourth part, God is playing. Who is he playing with? He's playing with the whale, the famous big whale that we know it's that there were 2 whales and God took one of them so they wouldn't destroy the world. שנאמר לוויתן זה יצרת לשחק בו. That you created the whale in order to play with it. So this, you can already see that this is a very interesting way of looking at it. What the Alter Rebbe explains is that God is basically, this is a parable to show how God is in this world from all different levels. The first level, the highest level is the muskal, is the chokhmah bina and dat, the highest level of understanding. That when God is learning Torah, it means that God is giving a higher level of understanding to this world. Again, when we are connecting to the level of understanding, that's when we're learning. Then there's the second level is the feeling, mugash. That's more connecting to the heart. That's the judgment. The heart judges that there's things that are good, that are right, that are bad. All of these things, when coming to this world, that's the second part that relates to the parable of God judging the world and coming out of judgment to being merciful. The third part is the part that's in this world, mutba. That's how God is connecting to this world, is feeding this world from the highest to the lowest level. Same thing. And then finally, the last part is the pleasure part. Is the part where God plays with reality. And the same thing, when a man comes to his house, he should try to bring down these lights in those 4 levels. The first level is to bring very high level of learning, of education, of understanding. That's the highest level. That's when someone learns from something in the Beit Midrash in different level of learning, but he brings that into the house. That's the highest level. Then the second part is basically bringing mercy, bringing a higher level of feelings, of emotions to the house. Again, what is the job of the husband or the male part, or again in the parable, the part that we're trying to enlighten our house? We have a Jewish family, we have a Jewish house, or in general, we have every house, as we know that we're trying to, in this Song of Songs, to relate to the whole world. So in a family, in a house, what is the job of the male? And again, this is a parable, so it could definitely be the wife in the house. But what is the job of the male, of the man in the house? What does the man in the house need to do? So again, we learn this from the way God, from the description in Gemara of how God is in the world. So the first part is the man of the house needs to bring in a higher level of understanding. He needs to bring in Torah, but Torah in the level of higher understanding, a purpose. After that, the second part, the man of the house needs to bring a lot of mercy. He needs to bring a lot of feelings, of emotions, of connection to the house. The third part is the simple part. You have to bring food. You have to provide. You have to be connected. You can't just be all understandings and emotions. You got to be connected. And the final part is the part where you have to play games. You have to be in the Mesachek Shashu. Obviously, the simple game of a man and a woman, as we understand it. But in every level of the relationship, the goal of the man of the house, as we said, the final goal is to play games. As we know that a father the highest level of connection to the sons and families. Usually, he tickles them, he makes them laugh. What's the point? He connects them to the game, to the simple game, to the first simple pleasure and joy of this world. So all of these are responsibilities of every person, whether it's male or female, whether the man or the woman. But again, it comes from how God is looking at this world, the same way as how a person should develop a relationship in this world. Rabbi Ginzburg continues. We're out of time, but Rabbi Ginzburg continues to explain how these different levels of consumption of the bride to the groom is connected to the different levels of love of God and love in this world. And as I say every time, I urge everybody to read the special wonders of this week and to be connected to the different classes and shiurim. With this, we'll wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. I will give a minute or two if anyone has any questions. I'll look in the chat if anyone has questions, although I do think that Lazar opened the microphone. And I would also, obviously, with this great Torah that we're learning, great connection, we hope to have redemption, to have the final Mashiach and all the bad things that are happening, that we've had very tough time the last couple of weeks. Am Yisrael, we came out of the coronavirus. We had the sad thing that happened in Meron, and the past festival of Shavuot was very sad. Right before the beginning, right at the end of Sfirat HaOmer, we had the tragedy over in Givat Ze'ev with the Karlim Hasidim, which the whole benches fell apart and many people were injured. And we know that Hamas is shooting rockets at Jews. And there's a lot of things that are judgment. Obviously, we can use this and we should use this, as Rabbi Ginzburg brought in the letter, to speed in the redemption, speed in the connection, but to God and to redemption and to Mashiach, our Moshe Rabbeinu, our Messiah, and general, to get out of this galut. But we want to do it as the Lubavitch Rebbe would always say. We want to do it b'chesed u'berachamim, with mercy and with loving kindness, not with any judgment, as we saw from the way God sits in different chairs, stands out of the judgment chair to bring mercy to this world. Okay, any questions? Any thoughts? Anyone want to share with us anything?